A teenage girl walks into a small-town police station, barefoot, shaking, and wrapped in a gray hospital blanket. She gives the desk sergeant her name. He freezes, because according to every file in that building, she died 2 years ago. Her death certificate is signed. Her funeral was held. Her grave, with her name on it, is still standing in the town cemetery. But the girl in front of him is very much alive. And the next words out of her mouth will blow open a dormant serial killer case. I know who took the others. He thinks I'm dead. I can show you where he lives. This is the story of how a teenage girl, legally dead on paper, came back from the grave to take down a serial predator the police had been chasing for years. Before we go further, a quick note. All names and some identifying details in this video have been changed or blurred. The case you're about to hear is a composite drawn from multiple real investigations into long-term abductions and serial offenders. The patterns, the investigative techniques, and the survivor's journey are all based on documented realities. But I'm avoiding specifics that could re-traumatize families or violate anyone's privacy. What matters here is not the killer's fame. What matters is how one girl's survival and determination finally shut him down. In this story, we'll follow a 15-year-old girl everyone believed was dead, a serial offender hiding in plain sight for almost a decade, and a botched investigation that only gets a second chance when the dead girl walks back into town. By the end, you'll see exactly how she turned her own kidnapping into the key that exposed a pattern of disappearances no one had connected, and how close he came to getting away with all of it. Our story starts in the small town of Riverton, population just under 18,000. It's the kind of place where people still leave their doors unlocked, and everyone knows everyone. Or at least thinks they do. Our main character, who we'll call Hannah Cole, is 15 years old. What does Hannah want? On paper, it's simple. She wants out of Riverton. She's a good student, obsessed with crime shows, and counting down the days until she can apply to colleges in real cities. Her bedroom wall is covered with acceptance rate charts and campus photos she's printed out from the library. Underneath that, she wants something deeper, to prove that she's not just the quiet kid from a nowhere town. To prove she matters. On the last Friday of the school year, Hannah finishes her shift at a local diner. It's already dark. Her mom is working a late nurse shift, her stepdad's on the road, and her usual ride bails at the last minute. She sends one last text to her best friend. It's fine, I'll walk. Town's not that scary face with tears of joy. Those are the final words anyone in Riverton will see from her phone. Security cameras pick her up leaving the diner at 9:14 p.m., tying her apron around her backpack strap, then cutting across the parking lot toward the main road. She never makes it home. At 10:02 p.m., her mom tries calling. No answer. By midnight, her mom has called every friend, every relative, and finally, the police. At 1:30 a.m., an officer does a quick drive-through of Hannah's usual route. He notes there's no sign of a struggle, no phone on the side of the road, nothing obvious. The report, later criticized, labels her as a possible runaway, with no clear evidence of foul play. This is the first mistake. Because what the officer doesn't know is that, 11 minutes after Hannah left the diner, a dark SUV pulled up alongside her. The driver was a man she recognized. In our story, we'll call him Daniel Marsh. On the surface, Marsh is exactly the kind of person small towns trust. Late 30s, church volunteer, handy with cars and home repairs. He's helped half the town with something. A leaky roof, a dead battery, a broken lock. He's also been quietly watching teenage girls in Riverton for years. We're not going to dwell on graphic details here. What you need to know is this. Marsh targets young women who walk alone at night. He's careful. No wild scenes, no witnesses. And so far, no bodies that police can confidently tie to him. 3 years before Hannah vanished, another girl from a nearby town disappeared walking home from a party. Her case is still unsolved. There are rumors, of course. A stranger in a truck, a jealous ex. Nothing stuck. The pattern is there. Nobody's seeing it. Yet. Back to Hannah. As she walks along the shoulder, The SUV slows down. She hears her name. Hannah. That you? Need a ride? It's Marsh. He's fixed her mom's car before. He's been at their house. He knows her birthday. He knows where she goes to school. She hesitates for a moment. The kind of hesitation every parent prays will last just a few seconds longer. It doesn't. She gets in. That seemingly small, understandable choice. Trusting a familiar adult in a familiar town becomes the turning point of her entire life. Within minutes, they've turned off the main road. Hannah realizes they're going the wrong way. By the time she understands what's happening, it's too late. The next morning, Riverton explodes into action. Volunteers form search parties. Flyers with Hannah's photo go up in every shop window. Local news stations run the missing person story on repeat. Police request phone records, interview friends, and pull surveillance footage from the diner, the streets, and the main intersections. There's a crucial detail in that footage that they missed the first time. At 9:25 p.m., a dark SUV passes under a traffic camera less than half a mile from where Hannah was last seen. You can barely make out her ponytail in the passenger seat. The frame is blurry. The license plate is unreadable. That SUV is registered to Daniel Marsh. But no one connects it. Yet. Why? Because Marsh has something most predators in small towns use to their advantage. Reputation. He shows up to help with the search. He brings coffee to the volunteers. He consoles Hannah's mother, tells her, "We'll find her. She probably just needed space." He even stands in front of the camera at a local vigil, candles lit behind him, and says into the microphone, "If you're out there, Hannah, we just want you to come home." The deception works. For now. Days turn into weeks. Tips slow down. The story drifts from the front page to the second, and then disappears entirely. There is still no body. Hannah's mom refuses to accept that her daughter is gone. She keeps Hannah's room exactly as it was the night she left work. She leaves the porch light on, just in case. But the systems around her run on paperwork, and paperwork needs closure. 2 years after Hannah's disappearance, with no leads and no confirmed sightings, a court grants the family's petition to legally declare her dead. It's a devastating procedural step meant to help them access insurance benefits and settle affairs. Hannah Cole, age 17, is now, on paper, deceased. A headstone bearing her name is placed in Riverton Cemetery. Her case file is moved into the cold case cabinet. And the man who took her is still free. While Riverton grieves, life around Marsh appears normal. He changes vehicles. He mows his lawn. He keeps volunteering. But his pattern doesn't stop. Over the next 3 years, 2 more young women vanish within a 60-mile radius, each time under slightly different circumstances. A party, a bus stop, a night jog. On paper, these are separate tragedies in separate towns. Behind the scenes, it's one offender getting bolder. What nobody knows, what no one in Riverton can even imagine, is that one of his victims is still alive. Hannah. We are not going to linger on what Hannah endured. That's not what this channel is about, and it's not what she should be remembered for. What's important is this. She survives. She watches. And she waits. Hannah learns the layout of the place she's being held. She learns Marsh's routines. When he leaves, how long he's gone, what doors he double-checks, and which one he starts to get careless about. Her external goal is simple and fierce. Get out. Her internal motive is sharper. If she doesn't escape, she knows she won't just die quietly. She believes, correctly, that if he isn't stopped, other girls will disappear just like she did. Hannah isn't just fighting for herself anymore. She's fighting for girls who don't even know they're in danger yet. That's what keeps her alive. One afternoon, nearly 4 years after she disappeared, Marsh makes a mistake. He gets a call about a last-minute repair job 2 towns over. In a rush, he leaves the house earlier than usual. He locks the usual doors. He checks the usual windows. But he misses one thing. A flaw in his routine Hannah has been watching for. And waiting to test. For months. She knows from experience exactly how long these repair jobs take, how much time she has before he returns, and what happens if she's still there when he does. The stakes could not be higher. If she fails, there won't be another chance. If she succeeds, she's not just escaping. She's bringing a serial predator down with her. And on that afternoon, with the clock ticking, she makes her move. Hannah has been running the same calculation in her head for months. How long does he stay out on a weekday job? Which neighbors are usually home in the afternoon? How fast can she cross the distance between trapped and seen? Today, the answer has to be fast enough. The second she hears his truck fade down the road, Hannah moves. She uses a small weakness in the doorframe she's been quietly working at for weeks. A screw that never quite aligned. That's just a little too soft. It gives. She doesn't stop to celebrate. She stumbles through a narrow hallway, past a closed door she's never been allowed to open, toward a back entrance she's only seen when Marsh forgets to shut it all the way. For the first time, there's daylight on the other side. She forces it open. Cold air slams into her face. And then she's running. Not in a straight line. That's too risky. She cuts between yards, past rusted cars and barking dogs, until she reaches a street she recognizes from brief glimpses through a dirty window. An old county road, a gas station about half a mile down. Her legs keep trying to give out. She doesn't let them. Because there's a thought pounding in her head louder than her own heartbeat. If I make it, he doesn't get to do this again. She reaches the gas station, grabs a stunned customer by the arm, and says the first word she's spoken to anyone but Marsh in nearly 4 years. Call 911. Please. My name is Hannah Cole. I was kidnapped. An ambulance brings her to a nearby hospital. Doctors note old injuries, malnutrition, and the stunned silence of someone who has spent years surviving moment to moment. Social workers are called. So are the police. When the intake nurse asks for her name, the officer standing nearby overhears. He pauses. Hannah Cole. From Riverton. His hand goes to his radio. Within an hour, Riverton PD has sent 2 detectives to the hospital. They walk into the exam room with a mix of hope and disbelief. They've both seen false leads before. People who want a missing girl to have survived. But when they see her, they both know. Same eyes. Same scar on her left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. Same birthmark on her wrist her mother mentioned years ago in interviews. Hannah passes every question they throw at her. Childhood addresses. Teachers' names. Details about the diner. Still, procedure is procedure. Within 24 hours, DNA taken from Hannah is matched with DNA from her childhood medical records and, separately, with a swab from her mother. It's her. The dead girl is alive. And she has a name. Daniel Marsh. The second she's strong enough, detectives set up a recorded interview room in the hospital. This is where Hannah's years of observation become their roadmap. She doesn't just tell them he took her. She tells them the layout of his house, the roads he used most often, the sound of nearby trains at certain hours, which helps narrow down the area, the exact brand and color of the duct tape he favors, a detail investigators later match to receipts, and, crucially, a partial license plate from one of the vehicles he used early on. They cross-check that with DMV records. 3 hours later, a name pops up. Daniel Marsh. The name is not new to the department. It appeared once, buried in a stack of early tips from the first days of Hannah's disappearance, when someone mentioned a helpful neighbor who always seemed to be around. He was never followed up on. That oversight, for the lead detective, feels like a punch to the gut. There won't be a second oversight. Investigators move fast. They pull Marsh's current address. They subpoena his cell phone records. They map his historical tower pings over the last 7 years. Patterns emerge. His phone consistently pinged near the routes where at least 2 other missing girls were last seen. On the night Hannah vanished, his phone and hers traveled in the same direction along the same road for a brief, crucial window. Before her phone stopped transmitting entirely. That's enough for a warrant. SWAT teams and detectives surround Marsh's property before dawn. He opens the door in a t-shirt, halfway through a yawn. He doesn't get to finish it. He's taken into custody without incident. Inside the house, they find exactly what Hannah described. A hidden room behind what looks like an ordinary storage closet. Multiple locks retrofitted from inside the hallway. Restraints, a mattress, and personal items that clearly don't belong to Marsh. They don't film everything. They don't release photos to the media. This isn't about shock value, it's about evidence. They seize his electronics. On one hard drive, they find dated folders with names. Some matching missing girls from the region. The files themselves are sealed from public viewing, even at trial, to protect the victim's dignity. On a shelf, they find boxes of trophies, driver's licenses, pieces of jewelry, scraps of notebooks. Among them, the silver bracelet Hannah's mom gave her for her 13th birthday. Tiny items that, when linked with missing person reports, transform suspicion into a clear pattern. Once Marsh is in custody, the cold case unit goes into overdrive. They start with the 3 known missing girls. The teenager who vanished walking home from a party 3 years before Hannah. Hannah herself. And a college freshman who disappeared from a bus stop 2 years after Hannah was taken. Cell records place Marsh near all 3 locations at relevant times. GPS data pulled from an old repair shop tablet tied to his business shows routes that match each disappearance to within minutes. In one case, an old traffic camera, mostly ignored at the time, is pulled from storage and re-enhanced with newer software. Under the grainy pixels, a license plate becomes just clear enough. It matches one of Marsh's previous vehicles. Tiny details, pulled from different agencies and different years, start linking together like puzzle pieces. None of this would have been re-examined without Hannah's statement. Her survival doesn't just free her. It gives investigators the missing key for everyone else. As Marsh waits in jail, the media swarms. A girl legally declared dead has returned. A supposed pillar of the community has been arrested as a suspected serial predator. You can imagine the headlines. Hannah and her family choose to stay largely out of the spotlight. When she does appear, it's on her terms, with strict limits about what can be asked. In court, prosecutors charge Marsh with multiple counts of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and homicide where they can link him to deceased victims. In other cases, they press every charge possible, including aggravated assault and sexual violence. But the more graphic allegations are kept out of public filings to protect surviving families. The case doesn't rely on gruesome storytelling. It relies on Hannah's direct testimony, forensic evidence from the house, cell tower data and GPS logs, the items linked to multiple missing girls, and Marsh's own digital footprint, searches, maps, and notes. His defense team claims it's all misunderstood, that the items are collected junk, that Hannah is confused after trauma. But trauma is not confusion. Hannah answers every question calmly, even when the defense tries to undermine her. Most jurors later say the same thing. They believed her long before the digital evidence started piling up. After a 6-week trial, the verdict is read. Guilty. On every major count. Marsh is sentenced to multiple consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. So what happens after a story like this? The headlines move on. The cameras leave. But Hannah still has to wake up every day and live with what happened. She spends months in trauma-informed therapy. She finishes high school with a tutor. She slowly relearns simple things, riding in a car without panicking at every turn, sleeping without checking the locks a dozen times. Some relationships can't go back to before. They evolve instead. Her mother, who spent years visiting a grave with Hannah's name on it, now has her daughter back. But not the same daughter who left for a diner shift one ordinary Friday night. That's okay. They build something new. Over time, Hannah starts to speak. Not about the details of her captivity, but about the system around it. She talks to local police cadets about what it feels like when your disappearance is labeled a runaway case too early. She joins a nonprofit that teaches teenagers practical safety skills and, more importantly, how to report uncomfortable behavior without being dismissed. Her message is always the same. The goal is not to make young women live in fear. The goal is to make communities pay attention to patterns, to behaviors, to the quiet kid who went missing and was too quickly written off. When you hear a title like Teenage Girl Comes Back from the Dead to Take Down Serial Killer, it's easy to think of a wild twist in a movie. But the reality behind stories like Hannah's is not entertainment. It's about how one survivor's courage can crack open years of silence. How methodical investigation, cell data, GPS logs, old camera footage, forensics, can finally catch someone who hid in plain sight. And how critical it is to treat missing teens cases with care, rather than assumptions. If there's one practical thing to take from this story, it's this. When someone goes missing, details matter. Screenshots, timelines, last routes, uncomfortable, helpful people hovering on the edges. And when survivors come forward, even years later, how we listen to them can be the difference between a closed file and real justice. Hannah's life is not defined by what was done to her, or by the man who hurt her. It's defined by the fact that when she finally found a way out, she didn't just run from him. She ran through him, straight to the people who could stop him from ever doing it again.